Again, they're out there in the street and they're criticizing Israel, which is assumably an expression of Jewishness, and the Jewish people there took offense to it. It's our land, it's our state, it's our people, and you're condemning us. Now, you want to condemn us nicely, that's swell. You want to hit somebody, that's not so swell.
Well, they are bringing charges. It's just that the charges seem awfully light, like something that they can guarantee that they can get a conviction on, and not necessarily.
Right, but I don't understand how a man dies as a result of those injuries, and that's not considered some accessory to murder.
So that's the contention right now. That initially they said that Paul Kessler was the aggressor. In one of the procedural hearings in court,
Who said that?
Who said that Paul Kessler was the aggressor?
Right.
Of course, the defense attorney. Okay. Another Muslim. But Paul Kessler had his iPhone and captured the whole thing, including the hit with the megaphone, which knocked him to the ground. That's when he hit his head. So they're trying to position it as this was a disagreement in the street, two people yelling at one another.
Go on.
One person, alleges that Paul Kessler, the defense is alleging that Paul Kessler was poking with his phone. That was shown not to happen.
Did it ever touch him?
No. But then the Alnaji, the guy that actually murdered him, struck him, then punches him in the face with the megaphone, the bell end of the megaphone, knocks him back. He hits his head on the ground, and he dies of a brain bleed.
Hours later. How long afterwards?
Middle of the morning, so to like 2 a.m.
So it's just after midnight. Only
Yeah.
And when did the...
He was struck at 3:18 p.m. in the afternoon.
So it basically...
9 hours.
9 hours later.
Did he get proper medical treatment? Was he speedily...
Yeah, the
911 came?
ambulance came right away. The fire department ambulance came right away. They picked him up, transported him to the hospital. And his wife, I believe, took him off life support at some time around 2:30
in the morning.
Yeah.
So it was less than 12 hours.
Yeah.
He only lived less than 12 hours from the time.
Yeah.
So there's no question that it was the strike that he got smacked in the face with a megaphone, but it was his balance that was the issue, not the...
I work for the grand jury in Ventura County, so yesterday we toured the medical examiner's office, and I said, I saw you testify in open court, and he said, oh, what case? And I said, Paul Kessler case, and he said, it's the one where the guy got hit with the megaphone, right? And I said, yeah, and I was really impressed because you matched up the pattern from the foam gasket on the bell of the megaphone to the marks on his face. And I said, I'm an engineer. I thought that was brilliant that you did that. And he said, oh, thank you. And said that was a really unfortunate incident.
In other words, the strike was so strong that it left an imprint.
Yes.
Even posthumously?
Yes.
So it wasn't just an accidental slight.
No.
He got walloped.
Yeah. And they had these, postmortem pictures that they were displaying where they then superimposed in a transparency the bell of the megaphone on there, and you go like, this is like the kind of stuff you see on Columbo. Or Quincy, remember that TV show? Yeah. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, in retrospect, do you feel that the charges are suited, that these guys, that the attackers...
What were you charged with?
Yeah, second-degree manslaughter.
Second, involuntary manslaughter and assault, or essentially battery to which causes serious bodily harm.
I mean, second-degree manslaughter would mean that it wasn't premeditated.
I believe so.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
But it does mean that he took a life. And that he's the cause of that life. Not balanced. He's the cause of that death.
Maximum 4 years.
That's it.
That's it.
Maximum 4 years.
There are people who are facing longer than 4-year sentences for January 6th.
Yeah.
For trespassing in the Capitol building.
Yeah.
So our entire judicial system needs revamping. Or brain surgery.
Yeah.
And those people that serve on the with distinction and well-educated from law schools in the areas of capacities of attorneys and judges really are laboring under rules and laws that don't make a whole lot of sense.
Nope.
And you're also in the 818 area code,
Right.
but how much has this been
Discussed?
not just discussed, but how much indignation and activism on this case is this in the Orthodox areas?
Not much. Not much. It has not been brought to people's attention. It wasn't even a matter of discussion. The tragedy of its isolation, I guess, is a tragedy that we just haven't really been made aware, and maybe even if we were, who's to say that people would really stand up, and who's to say that the people have that kind of connection or feeling for this? I'm embarrassed to say. We live in apathetic times.
100% agreed. And if you just look at the anti-Semitism that took place on the college campuses,
and no one's fighting that either.
and nobody's doing anything about it. There was a small group of people that did something about it in the cloak of darkness in the early morning, right?
At UCLA, you mean?
Yeah. And but other than that,
I'm not sure that established American jury and the establishment of major organizations such as the ADL, the AJC, and
How about the Jewish Federation?
the Jewish Federation. I'm not sure that that they would really respond with much. That never seen any concern them in the past.
okay, so with respect to the Jewish Federation, I was invited to go to Washington, D.C. last November 14th, not this one that just passed, but a year, 2023. Right after this happened, there was a march.
I remember that march.
Okay, I was there. I was asked to go by Henry Stern.
Who was that?
Henry Stern is our state representative. I think he's from the Malibu district, but he lives here in Valley Village.
He's a congressman?
He's a state senator.
State senator.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he took me, and I went, and he set up a meeting. It was myself, the president of the Jewish Federation, Henry Stern, Alex Padilla, and
Who's the senator?
as our senator, and LaFonza Butler, who was the appointed senator by Gavin Newsom after Dianne Feinstein died. And so we're sitting there in the Senate building and waiting on LaFonza Butler, who was late. And she comes in and she said she can't stay. And
who's LaFonza Butler?
she's our
She
senator.
was a U.S. senator who replaced Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, here in California.
Yeah. Nobody, Henry, I traveled on my own nickel to get to D.C.
And she hasn't got the time to meet.
And she hasn't got the time. And I looked at Henry Stern and I'm like, what? And I said, excuse me, do you know why we're here? And she said, oh yeah, I know why we're here, but I need to open the Senate. And I said, I don't know what opening the Senate means. I said, but you don't know why we're here, and you don't know who I am because we haven't been introduced. And I said, so I stood up, I introduced myself, and I said, the reason I'm here is because one of your constituents was killed in the streets by a Muslim, and that's why we're here. Yeah, I know that. And she says, I gotta go. And I said, you gotta go. I said, well, then you should go. And she rolled her eyes at me, and I said, wait a second. I said, do not roll your eyes at this Jew. And so she looked at one of her assistants, and she went like this, and I could tell when she did that what I was dealing with, and she was gone. And then I spent my time talking to Alex Padilla, who was sympathetic, but he even said to me, he goes, I've only been in office for a few short years here, and I don't even know where to go with this. And I said, well, we should have somebody here that's Jewish. Like, what about Chuck Schumer? Bring him in here. And he couldn't do that because I guess Schumer was getting ready to go speak at the rally across the street.
Which rally? Oh, the rally.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
But so when
it was purely a Jewish rally. I mean, purely a pro-Israel rally.
It was
correct.
Pure pro-Israel rally.
It wasn't a counter Arab or counter Palestinian.
No.
Yeah.
This was all
jihad.
Jews.
Yeah. But,
the Jews rally civilized.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but when you went out, you went to counter protest, didn't you?
I did.
And how many were on your side? You went for 2 weeks.
I went for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. How many were on your side on either week?
2.
Only you? 2 besides you?
No, myself and Paul Kessler.
What happened the first week you were there?
When I met Paul for the first time, I said, let's walk around here and just get the lay of the land and find out what kind of people these are. So we're walking...
How many were there?
Quite a few, around 100.
Wow.
It was a little bit, it was scary, I have to say. And we weren't allowed to walk on the sidewalk, which I know is...
Why not?
Well, because they wouldn't let us walk on the sidewalk. They pushed us into the street.
Who did? The Arabs?
Yeah, the Arabs. So I was pushed into the street, and I really am lucky I wasn't hit by a car. Because on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, the traffic is right up against the curb.
So the 2 of you were there.
Yeah.
And were you mixed in with them?
No, we were walking through them, and I had my phone out so I could...
Why were you walking through them?
I wanted to capture faces, and I wanted to see, like, if they were going to get physical. And they got physical in a way. They just wouldn't allow us to walk on the sidewalk.
Isn't that illegal?
Yeah, it is illegal. It is illegal. It's also illegal to carry a weapon to a rally, and I had a weapon flashed at me.
It wasn't yours.
It wasn't. No, I wasn't carrying a weapon.
One of the Arab demonstrators?
Yes.
When you say flashed?
Pulled after I was pushed in the street, and I
means you can see it.
And I lost my balance. I turned around as I'm trying to catch my balance with the camera because I wanted to see who pushed me. And he looks at me and he lifts up his sweatshirt, and I got the picture.
He wasn't showing you in a defensive way.
No, he's showing me. I'm armed. And I said, Paul.
How do you know you're Jewish?
He was carrying an Israeli flag.
Oh,
No.
Weren't you?
No, not that day.
Oh, no.
Carrying nothing. Carrying nothing.
so how do they know who you are?
Well, because you weren't with them.
Not with them. That's a good point.
They know their people. He wasn't wearing a keffiyeh.
Or waving a Palestinian flag.
Yeah. And then so I said to Paul, let's go. And we walked over to the other side of the street. So we crossed over Thousand Oaks Boulevard. I said, we don't want to mess with this when they're going to show you a gun in the middle of the day.
And there were no cops there that you could go to?
Nope. So that's when called 911 and the police did show up, but they wouldn't do anything about it.
A man who's carrying but has a mask is not stopped.
That is correct.
Not only wasn't stopped, they wouldn't even identify him, would they?
No.
When you asked, did he have to show his ID?
I mean, when Jesse James robbed the bank in Sioux City, Iowa, or in any of those Old West movies, and he brandished his mask as an outlaw, they couldn't stop him from robbing the bank either.
You couldn't stop him from robbing the bank.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, they couldn't identify him as the bank robber.
Well, they could pull the mask down, couldn't they?
They didn't even have to take it was a COVID mask? Or was it a
No, it was
keffiyeh
keffiyeh wrapped around his
Well, like
face.
the kind of mask that the old criminals used to wear.
All they needed to get was an ID from him to know what his name was, that he's carrying a gun, and where's his concealed carry permit.
So here's the thing. The Fourth Amendment prevents against illegal search and seizure.
Unreasonable, isn't it?
Unreasonable search and seizure. So,
But if somebody says, hey, this guy's flashing in a menacing, and he's already menacing me.
maybe I wasn't a credible witness.
To the cops?
Yeah.
Or they just didn't want to have to deal with it.
Well, I said that. I said to the cop, I said, so I guess, what, are you an anti-Semite?
And he said?
I don't remember what he said. But now people are pouring out of this restaurant, Paul Martin's, at the corner of Westlake and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, with the cops there. And there's another guy, another Jewish guy, younger than I and in very good shape. And he started, threatening them. And he's like, he wanted to go do battle. And the cops were there. They trying to separate that. They're just, listen, I'll tell you, I've seen it up close and personal a couple times. And I will tell you that the police, first of all, police are now, they're no longer two to a car in Ventura County.
So they've been defunded.
I don't know if you say it that way, but they're one to a car, and they're there to keep the peace. And they're not there to
Stop bad guys.
They're not there to admonish you. At least they weren't that day.
Guys.
Or stop bad guys, yeah. And these are things I'm learning as, every time I go.
Because the issue is twofold. It's A, the police and their ineffectiveness, and B, the issue of Jews and anti-Semitism, or maybe a combination of both. Certainly, I mean, on an anti-Semitic level, we have only uncovered what is truly a sickness that is afflicting the entire country. The country that has grown from the 1960s civil rights movement to a progressive and more enlightened attitude towards minorities, including the allowance of illegals, doesn't find time for Jews. So therefore, with all of our progressive liberal civil rights and beliefs of equality for all people and races and creeds, it doesn't apply to Jews. Which simply means that anti-Semitism is well and healthy throughout these United States.
100% agreed.
Well, but can justice be served, and what would it take for justice, in your view, to get served properly? I mean, the way that things have been going, that there are plea deals, plea bargains in negotiation that might lead to Loay Alnaji getting off entirely. I mean, it may, with a light sentence, maybe just a probation.
Could happen.
If he were not to serve time for an assault that ended a life, there can be no greater miscarriage of justice. If he were to be able to be allowed, even you say parole, or allow him to walk probation, whatever, simply means that the justice system has put a dangerous man on the streets.
And what sort of precedent does it set for further antagonists?
Great.
I think it basically sets the stage and says that feel free, because
it's open season on Jewish people.
Yeah.
And
I think I've used that in a couple interviews. It's open season on Jews.
Yeah, there's no question that we live in a very dangerous time. Now, people out there throughout the country who hear this, think about it. And what do they think? Well, these Jews are really sensitive. Or maybe these Jews are just a pain in the neck anyway. And what's it our concern? I mean, how many Jews are there in the United States? 6 million out of 200 million? What does this all matter? And that might be, in fact, a standard response of the overwhelming majority.
So you've touched on something that I can identify with a little bit, and I was alluding to it earlier. I told you that I hadn't set foot in that temple in Thousand Oaks, that's Chaim, for 26, 27 years. So I grew up in a Reform household, and I was resentful because something wasn't right in my house between my mother and my father was constantly gone, and he became very involved in the temple. President of the temple, president of the men's club, teacher at the Sunday school, and here I am, just a kid, wanting to, play with my dad on the weekend when he wasn't working, and he was hardly ever around. So I was bar mitzvahed, I was confirmed, but easy to see why I just didn't have this burning desire in my chest to find out more about Judaism. But I had an awakening after this happened, and I sent you regards from Rabbi Meyer Rifkin earlier.
Right.
So I studied Torah 2 days a week.
Really?
Yes.
With Rifkin?
Yeah. Once with one day with Rifkin, and one day with the rabbi from Seagate.
Oh.
Remotely?
Yeah, remotely.
He's there in Coney Island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the temple where my father was bar mitzvahed.
Oh.
My parents were married. And it was right down the street. But when I started to really understand the lessons of Torah after this happened, and I put on tefillin for the first time, I'm a completely different person now.
Remarkable.
In ways that I can't even explain.
Your soul's been touched.
Yes. And I know that I have a purpose, and I know that Hashem is asking me to do things and putting me where he wants it done. And I now know this.
Well, Jewish pride is an expression of a deep-seated sense of identity. You've discovered that identity.
I have.
In that regard, we all of us who have that strong identity have that sense of pride and even outrage against what we've seen lately in terms of attitude towards Jews. And I think that that this pride is really a sense of the special chosen mission that we have. So what is that chosen mission? Frankly, to civilize humanity. Humanity is in a whole lot of trouble. United States, elsewhere throughout the world. The Muslim world has corrupted humanity to a great degree. The Muslim world has sent messages of danger to all over the world, in many countries in Europe, the United States, and so forth. And people aren't reading the message.
Aren't?
They don't really understand the great danger. These are people, or I shouldn't say people. This is a religion, a theory, a theology that does preach violence, that does preach control, and believe strongly its way is the only way. Judaism, in comparison, is universal. We believe there's a great role for non-Jewish people to play in helping to develop a humane society. Part of that humane society that we seek to develop and promote really must take a stand against that would compromise that. And the messages of that really are destructive need to be fought against. Now, the state of Israel is doing that on a definitive way of doing it, and frankly, that's appropriate. Humanity does demand to take up violent methods to stop violence. That's what war is all about. America fought in World War I. America fought in World War II. Didn't want to, didn't like it. It wasn't their battle. But they went over there to battle the evil. I remember that my father, of blessed memory, fought in World War II. And when the Vietnam War came about, he was reluctant to see the similarity. He said, why people are not wanting to go to the Vietnam conflict, I can understand. But in World War II, the mindset of the people wasn't like that. We knew that Nazis were evil. Well, I think we know that Hamas is evil. We know that Hezbollah is evil. And then there's a need to stand up strong and fight. And if apathy grips others, we can't be swallowed up by that apathy.
That's right, and I think there's not enough people, especially younger people, that realize this. I've found more common ground with Christians that realize this than I have with Jews, because I think largely because it's how things are being taught in school. I think that there's been a break in our communities away from organized religion. I just look at myself, and I realized that I hadn't been in a shul for 26 years, and then I started thinking about everybody else. And so, as organized religion is, on the downslide, and this propaganda and Jew hatred is starting to climb, these people are starting to feel like, well, maybe those people are telling me the truth, that
which people?
What I'm learning in school, the world is telling me the truth, that, Israel is an apartheid state. The Jews are, they're oppressing colonizers, from Europe.
It's a funny thing, just to touch on that point for 1 second. In 1948, when finally Israel's borders were established after the war, War of Independence, there was a Jewish state. There was supposed to be a Palestinian state right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a state. It was an Arab state.
You mean an Arab Palestine?
Correct, right.
Yep.
But that state wasn't called Palestine. Instead, it was called Jordan.
Yeah.
Now, Jordan, for its part, did not like its own brothers, Palestinians. So when the War of 1967 liberated the territories,
East Jerusalem,
East Jerusalem and Hebron and
Judea, Samaria.
Judea, Samaria. So we were among the first, I was there at the time, we were among the first to travel through and tour the holy sites that we were denied over the last 19 years. Well, what we saw besides that was concentration camps and Palestinians in them. That's what Jordanians did. Jordanians would not ever give proper citizenship to the Palestinians.
And it was a Jordanian American,
Loay Alnaji, yeah, he's Jordanian.
Who struck.
Right. Well, they've always had this problem. The well-known fact about Jordan is that it hated the Palestinians so badly that what we did with those Palestinians, we liberated them, frankly, and they moved out and moved throughout the land, and hopefully some of them got decent jobs and made a living, and others their college graduation is terrorism. But the Palestinian, the Jordanians had a purge of Palestinians right after that war, about 3 years later, in September 1970, called the Black September. They killed 25,000 Palestinians. Who's screaming about that?